All right, guys, welcome to AuddyHotties. You might notice we have an extra person today. It's Brookie. You finally get to meet the famed Brooke.
This is exciting.
Yep, my roommate turned tenant turned bestie.
What a journey.
Our number one commenter, too.
Yeah, I
We
know.
appreciate
I'm
you.
here to support.
I think you filled out most of
Our
the
most active
polls,
survey
the most polls on
participant.
Spotify.
I'm obviously invested. It's a shared space here. Here we go.
Yeah, Brooke also threw us our first episode party when
Right.
we first started. Yeah,
I love
so
it.
So
quite the
sweet.
sweet supporter. So we finally get her on, got her to beat the nerves and come be interviewed by us. So here we go.
Hotties.
Yeah, welcome to the Audie Hottie podcast.
Here we are.
All right, guys, I'm Bree.
I'm McKenna.
And I'm Brooke.
Brooke is our interviewee today. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the basics first.
Okay. Basics. Let's see. I grew up in Arkansas.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, we've got some Midwest things in common.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where we started our attachment. I moved to Oregon. I want to say it was like around 2007, and I was with friends, and I did my last few years of high school there. I graduated early because I knew I wanted to do dental school. So
Mhm.
I accelerated out of the program and did dental school here, did my externship, and then I ended up moving back to Arkansas to be near family.
Mhm.
Met my husband, moved back here. It was a lot of back and forth between that, and then I officially came back, I think 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and kind of started a new journey. Specifically, I don't know what questions you wanting to do here.
You have kiddos.
Yes, I have kiddos. I have
many a kiddo.
I do. I have four kids. I have three from my actual womb, and then I have a bonus child. I've loved the journey of being a mom.
And then you did dentistry for a while before you stopped to be full-time parent, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I once I got married, I ended up already having my stepdaughter. But prior to that, I did kids dentistry, which is
Oh, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
pediatric, which I was like, oh, I love kids, but like maybe not for me,
Well,
maybe
we
not.
were just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
before
I was like,
recording.
this is so great, but I'm not sure if I wanted
Yeah.
myself full time. But it ended up that Universe was going to create that scenario for me.
Which means you exactly where you need to be met.
Yeah. So I became a stepmom really quick. And then I got pregnant on my honeymoon and straight into the journey of kids. Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you were out of dentistry for how many years total?
So at the time, I didn't know I was on the spectrum. A lot of misdiagnoses, depression, OCD. I had my first baby, and towards the end of my maternity leave, I could not handle the idea of leaving my baby with other people. I was just like, this doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wanted kids, but this is not a natural process for me. And so
Yeah.
I said, no, I think I'm just going to stay home.
Yeah.
And then I saw another mom struggling, that a nearby neighbor, and she was like, "Oh, do you want to also keep my baby and they can like grow up together?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely." So I stayed home, and then I got pregnant again and again, very complex stories. And then I just kept staying home, and I ran in home daycare, and then yeah, fast forward. So yeah.
Fast forward, and you were getting back into dentistry finally after all that time,
Yeah.
and that's how we became roommates.
Yeah.
Dad was here, and
Yeah, the backstory for that is my youngest, who is on the spectrum, which is how I figured out that I am also on the spectrum. He was getting ready to go to kindergarten. I was really nervous, and I was like, okay, he's going to do this. I don't need to homeschool. My other two are successful in school. But once he goes to school, I don't want to just sit around at home.
Yeah.
I can't just sit around at home anymore. It's been like
half an empty nest because you're like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of here, but
Yeah.
they don't need me as much.
Yeah, and their dad worked from home too, and I was just like, this is a lot of time together. Maybe we should formulate another plan. And I got him into school after his diagnosis, and we worked through it and we worked through mine, and I decided to go back to work. And it was great. It's a lot at first, but I ended up really enjoying it, kind of transitioning between back office of assisting and like hygiene, and kind of went into like more like reception, which is a big step for me, especially after I figured out like certain characteristics. So
Yeah. We've talked about before. How you're like, why did I end up talking to people all day?
all day long. What's going on here?
Yeah. So since you were talking about your kiddo's diagnosis, what was kind of signs when he was little?
So for my first kid, I his dad has ADHD. There were all the signs. There was a little anger. There was a little like, hey, we should probably wait till he's 6, not 5 for kindergarten. And that worked, and he got his diagnosis, not a big deal. And then I had my daughter by surprise. I ended up getting pregnant during like some cancer treatments, and she has zero signs. I'm not sure what's going on with that one. She's the middle child, so
Just skip right
yeah,
over.
something skipped off of her. I'm not sure. And then I got pregnant with Benny, and we went around the time he started walking and talking. I was really good. I figured this, and I didn't know this. I figured this out later on. I loved cuddling when they're babies. I loved breastfeeding and nurturing, and it was so natural. Once each of my kiddos started walking, I would feel this extreme detachment, and they thought it was depression or postpartum delayed. I later figured out it was just part of the autism and like parenting, where when they're not needed, they don't depend on your survival needs. You kind of let them go physically, and you don't want to nurture them like that in a physical form, not a mental form.
Yeah, that makes
Wow.
Yeah, I
That
figured
makes
that.
a lot of sense.
I know, and I felt
Yeah.
like such a bad mom because at the time I still didn't know.
Yeah.
And so we went to Benny's, like, I think it was his 2-year checkup. So about three, it's been quite a few years, but his first checkup, they're like, he's struggling. He was doing the toe walking, a lot of signs lining things up, and I didn't know anything about it
Sure.
at that point. And I went into his first interview, and they're like, we're not too worried about him because he's got support. He has someone else in the family that's on the spectrum, and he's happy to have you. And I'm like, wait, what do you
Oh,
what do you mean?
I assumed that you knew.
They did, because I mean we did fill questionnaires. Yeah, we did fill out questionnaires, but there wasn't even like heavy history on our side, just like the basic family stuff. And I was like, um, okay. And so like I didn't want to argue, so I like went with it, and then we like got through it. And then later I like reached out to my doctor and like, oh yeah, we figured that. So everyone, it was like an assumption-based theory for me, which isn't fair because it was like misdiagnosis, and because as an adult you don't have to have it to like succeed in life.
Sure.
Nobody labeled it. So after that, obviously I went to some like intense like tests and stuff. But yeah, that was
So
like
even your primary doctor had been like, yeah, I totally was already like saying that you were basically.
yeah, and that's the problem because we moved back and forth between Arkansas and Oregon so much.
Oh,
I bet there was a disconnect between files and diagnoses, and then once they figured out Benny, they're like, it's kind of common for somebody else to be, and obviously, I mean, his dad wasn't, and then yeah, I did the test, and I was like, oh, wow, so much makes sense right now. Like this is too much information. So yes.
And so what are you officially diagnosed with?
At first, it was just, autism. They started with OCD. That's still kind of lingering. And then actually, that's like probably about 4.5 years ago. And then recently, I did get the ADHD diagnosis too. So it's the odd diagnosis now currently. So not depressed, absolutely not. They even went with like PMDD. So a lot of stuff got mixed into it.
Well, I think I shared this on an earlier podcast, but that is a phenomenon that new parents do get either misdiagnosed with PMDD or the PMDA, like the post
like after you have the baby.
Post-traumatic
I mean,
postpartum anxiety. And how that is becoming more and more clear that is actually like signs of autistic burnout or just like a neurodivergence. So there is more education around it.
Yeah. A lot more than a few years ago.
Yeah, that it surges after big, huge transitions like
Parenthood.
So,
and grad school.
Yeah. Any extremely big change. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So now looking back on it, do you think you had any signs in like childhood or
so many, but I had never researched it. I never even thought to. A lot of my family, it was not a conversation anyone talked about. So looking back, I'm like, Wow, that would have been so helpful in so many ways, and especially like deciding to get pregnant and give birth because there's just I don't think there's enough information for pregnancy and moms or in general or just having kids. It is a completely different setup. Your whole life changes, which means how you're treating everything changes too. I mean, everything, really.
Yeah, well, and I can't imagine like just like the sensory experience of being pregnant and then
Uh,
all of the transition from like yourself to you being with this dependent
mm.
little guy. And then transitioning through all of the different milestones, knowing what that means. So like just from very logistical point of view, I think that yeah, it sounds really hard to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doable for
Yeah.
sure. And with supports, I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot more enjoyable.
Yes, absolutely. But there'd be moments where I'd be like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I frustrated? Why
Yeah.
do I not want to cuddle my kid right now, especially when they got older? And had I had known or had the support, it would have been nice because you don't want to share those. You feel kind of ashamed to be like, but I'm the mom. I shouldn't feel like this. And
Yeah.
that was a big thing. And I remember like talking to other moms. I don't know if they were on the spectrum or not. We had a lot of mom groups. They wouldn't feel those feelings and then I wouldn't want to share them because I'm like, okay, well, this is obviously something. I'm thinking to myself.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. I feel like that's just such a beautiful story of
Oh,
like
Yeah.
coming to be and like
I want-
finding yourself through it all.
yeah,
And yeah,
definitely.
wow, super cool.
I think I've always worried about definitely the sensory experience of having kids between like needing a lot of alone time and like really struggling with that. Like then you don't have any alone time. And then the other thing for me was with my dog. My dog is extremely naughty and
Mm.
intentionally like sassy and just all over the place.
Oh, definitely.
But she was a teenager, especially. I just found myself like, she would bark or whine or like make a lot of noises, and I was just get so overwhelmed. And now I know like that getting to that rage point isn't necessarily rage, it's the like sensory overwhelm.
Yeah.
I was so worried about that with like kids. Like, I was like, if what if they're like crying or they scream or they scream in excitement or whatever it is, and I'm just getting to the point of rage. Like, how can I manage that? Did you ever experience anything like?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And not only was I experiencing it with my first kid, when he hit about 4, he'd also experience it with ADHD. And so or I mean ADD, but he would be like, would be just driving in the car and all of a sudden I have videos where he'd just be like started punching the back of the seat, just angry out of nowhere, and there was no cause. And I would be like, whoa, what's happening? And then because I couldn't fix it, then I was getting angry and I was like, but I'm not an angry person and neither is he. And like it was just like a cycle. Yeah. It's overwhelming and you're misinterpreting the sensations all at once because
Yeah.
you just want to shut down.
Sure.
Yeah, misinterpreting is a great way to say that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, you can't really validate the feelings, but you also can't explain them. So you're kind of left with like an in-between place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you didn't have a lot of people to like bounce off the sounding board for that. Of
Oh,
like, oh, I bring these things up and then nobody relates. Or like, yeah.
no, I mean, I've been in therapy probably my whole life. I mean, basically, but unless you're like honing in on something that you really feel, I don't feel like it's kind of like dived into pretty
For
much.
sure.
So,
Yeah. Definitely. What about when your oldest, when like the youngest one came in with the oldest, did they experience any like back and forth with each other of like irritation or like overstimulation from the baby?
honestly, I'm really lucky. My oldest, Grayson, he is he once he got to a certain age, I feel like it was like 10, he became this like extremely sweet and like polite kiddo and like he was like a calming experience. He was so excited to have a brother. And so was the sister. Both sisters were supportive. I don't feel like I had any issues with bringing in the last one, even though it was like 5 years later. Complete, not mistake, just a surprise.
It's a surprise, kiddo.
Yeah. But
Oh.
I'm so grateful that Benny came because without him, maybe I wouldn't have gotten diagnosed, and that probably would have made a big struggle for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, because my other two, their symptoms are different. So
Yeah.
I'm fortunate for that.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So my last question on parenting stuff was really just like, what did you find to be the biggest, I don't know, joys and the biggest challenges? Because obviously we'll cover some challenges, but
Okay. Joys. Honestly, because I didn't think I would enjoy being a parent, just getting thrown into it, It was nice. It was nice to, it was kind of like healing generational trauma for me.
Mm.
My upbringing was great. It was different, and I wanted to be more supportive for my kids than I think I got. Obviously, then figuring out, oh, I struggle with A, B, and C. Nobody knew, and if I see my kids struggling, there's certain things like with Grayson, he couldn't sit still in class, and I now know, hey, I can tell the teacher you can do this and this and this.
Yeah.
So those were big joys for me to just kind of like be their voice.
Advocate for them.
Yeah.
So,
And like I with my like autism, the sensory thing of like touch and cuddles and stuff was hard, and it was good to finally figure out, well, these are my kids. They know if I say I'm not like wanting to cuddle anymore, it's not going to be offensive. So it was great to like have my own little personal tribe where I felt safe to like,
oh,
I could say, hey, I don't really want to do any touch, or like it could be raining and be like, I kind of want to do touch. And it was nice to have a non-judgmental mini little audience.
Yeah, like a little safe space.
It was very safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we all kind of like learned each other's like languages and love and cuddles. And it was great to kind of hyper focus on something because I have that problem where I'll get into something and if it's my children, then hey, it's all for the better.
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did remember one thing though. You said that Benny has some trouble with sleeping, right?
Oh
As part
yeah.
of his autism.
Yes. We both do. It can be a genetic mutation. I've been tested for it. It came back like kind of positive. You have to do it 3 more times. There is something with a couple of the diagnoses where we do better with sleep from 1 a.m. until 5. I've done 3 sleep studies. So
Oh wow.
yeah, he's only done one. He has to wait till he gets older to do like a bigger one. But yeah, sleep is extremely hard. There's something like you can do deep pressure therapy sometimes for kids that get hyperactive at night that are on the spectrum. There's a ton of different things. For him, I just learned to just kind of let him decide if he can't sleep, then he can't sleep. And we find different ways to soothe and calm, or just if he's just sitting in the same room as me and not being asleep, that's okay too. I used to try to fight it. I used to be like, you have to go to bed at this time, you have to wake up,
Yeah.
you have to do all these things, and it made it worse. Like
Yeah.
it physically made everybody's life harder. And like in the summer, it looks maybe like I'm too relaxed of a parent, but at the end of the day, we're all thriving, and that's what my main concern is. So if anyone needs to judge that, that's on them. But our doctors and therapists and me, we're all being okay with it. But yeah, he does not sleep well like me. He could be up at 2 and it feels normal to him, but he also gets overstimulated. So being awake during the daytime with tons of people, and his siblings have lots of friends that come in and out. I think that affects his quality sometimes because he's like the autism where it comes off rude because he's so direct. And if he has a problem with something, he's going to tell you. He's been in such a safe space growing up where he's going to tell you. But at school, his teachers are like, he's amazing. He's so sweet. He never complains. We get concerned because he never complains.
Oh.
And if he does complain, we are really concerned. And
Aw.
but
Yeah, a lot of times when I come in, he's napping. He's just
Yeah.
passed out on the couch all the
Yeah,
time.
he's a big napper and he's a big snacker, and he is very picky on food. He has
Oh yeah, he has the food sensitivity.
Oh,
for sure.
such safety foods, and they don't stay either. It can be like, oh, I love this.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can love this for 5 months, and like, I absolutely hate this, Mom. Why would you even suggest this?
Yeah.
I'm like,
How
wait.
dare you?
Like,
That's
I'm
how
like,
I was as a kid. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I can remember like stints of time where it was like only peanut butter and honey for this amount of time, and then all of a sudden like I can never eat that again. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
they'll like dial back. I'm like, I can't even bulk out at Costco anymore because it's just, we never know.
Buy 100 of
We never
something
make
and it's
it.
never.
Yeah, unless it's frozen, I'm pretty sure not to do that now.
Oh man.
Brooke, you're a great mom.
Yeah,
Like
thanks.
just listening to you talk about your kids and just how you meet their needs and do like just really focus on them and like no one else's opinion. And yeah, they're really lucky to have you.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I'm trying. I would not say I'm perfect, but
I don't think you need to be perfect. I don't think perfect's real.
Yeah.
right?
Did you think it was real? 'Cause
I don't think so. No, I definitely
Especially when you're
didn't.
comparing a neurodiverse person to a neurotypical
Yeah.
standard of what we like expect
Yes.
parents to do. Or,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a thing in the speech community of like because we do feeding therapy.
Okay.
And it just reminded me of when you were talking about, how you let Benny sleep, where fed is best. So whether you have to do formula or whether you have to do like feeding tubes or just different, like literally whatever the child wants. As long
Yeah.
as they're getting fed, that's all that matters. And like
Right.
the stigma around it needs to go away. So sounds very similar to like how you're talking about
Yeah.
sleeping. And I think a lot of things in life, like socialization of just like, if you want to have friends, great. And if you don't, that's okay. And if
Right.
it's something you want to work on, let's work on it. But like, we don't have to work on it. So
It's your choice, and just
it's your
let me
choice.
know. I'm here for you.
Autonomy for
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
Yeah. And I think as a parent, it can get hard to like make those choices for those kids because I know that like, for a certain amount of years you are making those choices. So it's
Hmm.
like I think it's really cool to hear that like you're doing it in a very autonomous way of thinking like what they want.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I'm sure it's difficult for different types of families, and especially when two parents are honing in and have different opinions.
Yeah.
I'm lucky where it's
Yeah.
like majority rules here. So,
Yeah.
but then also it's a democracy, so my kids are gonna chime in too. Here we are.
Yeah, it's a democracy.
Yeah.
Your own little democracy
Yeah.
for your own little audience.
Yes.
I love that. So speaking of making your own choices and doing what you want,
Here we go.
What a segue.
Woo.
Good sex.
yeah, so the other thing I want to talk to Brooke about was Brooke is also, do you consider yourself polyamorous, ethically non-monogamous? Where are you in the labels land?
That has been a lot of therapy for the labels. I generally do not I figured out through the last year, especially after leaving my marriage, opening it up, doing different types of scenarios. The specific labels don't work for me. If I want to not confuse people, I'll say, yeah, polyamorous ENM.
Mhm.
But my favorite thing is now, which is even more confusing, is like the relationship anarchy of it.
Mhm.
Which you can kind of create your own rules, which kind of works, especially for someone that is on the spectrum, I think, from my point of view.
Yeah. Do
So,
you want to give us like your
Yeah,
definition
what
of
is
relationship
this?
anarchy?
I've never heard of
I was just like, I don't know. This might be getting
it's like, I feel like we need to like Google a specific answer for this.
You can do that.
Yeah. So if I try to sum it up, and a lot of different labels have come up for it, you are basically getting to decide. So not one relationship is more important than the other, whether
Yeah.
it's sexual, platonic, romantic, just a physical without sex. There are so many variations. And when I, you know, opened up my marriage and decided to move out and move in with you, I wasn't necessarily pursuing just sex, or just I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew that getting it from one person was too overstimulating for me. And we
Mhm.
kind of worked through that. My therapist is a sex-based therapist, which kind of helped me open up to a broader like idea of what needs weren't getting met, because they're not things
Mhm.
you think of every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of went with that. She was like, "Oh, you really seem to be hanging out with one of your friends, Mick, a lot, and you're not you're not sexually connected, but you cuddle and you're best friends, and you do romantic things or you do platonic things." And I was like, that relationship is just as important to me as if I was married or with a partner, even if it was primary or hierarchy. And she was just like, "Oh, this makes a lot of sense. You don't want the pressure of a label because things change. And some days I'll wake up and I'll be like, I don't want to talk to anybody. And I don't want that to be offensive. If I just have one relationship, they're depending on me for all of that
Mhm.
conversation, all that simulation. I mean, it goes to extremes. So I like to find special places and multiple relationships, which is
Yeah.
what's nice about anarchy. So,
Love that.
I
Here's
like
your
that.
here's your Google definition.
okay, here we go.
Relationship anarchy is a relationship philosophy and practice that rejects traditional relationship hierarchies and norms, emphasizing individual autonomy and the freedom to define relationships based on personal needs and desires rather than societal expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, without knowing about it, I already have been like exploring that.
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
really common. Not just for
Mm.
people on the spectrum, but just for people that I came out of a monogamous marriage of
Mhm.
15 years, and we both met so young, we didn't get any autonomy,
Mm.
and not getting to do different dynamics stunted us, I think. And I don't want my children to grow up and see that either. I want them to know that they have options
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
whatever way they want, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, yeah.
So with relationship anarchy, is it more common than not to have more of a non-monogamous build where you are like seeing multiple people, or is it like I don't know if this question makes sense, but like could you have like one romantic partner and then the rest like platonic people and then like but no one is like in a hierarchy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the whole like allure of it. In fact, I was like formulating my field profile. I'll just go ahead and put that out there.
Is that a dating app?
Oh,
What's that?
yeah,
Field, yeah, it's like
What do you think, you guys?
it's a dating app targeted towards like non-monogamous people.
it is, yeah.
There's a wide variety of types of people in this
Yes,
piece, but
absolutely. Yeah. Enter with caution also. I'll
Yes.
say that. I'm only like using that as an example because I'm on obviously other different dating, but that one specifically will let you pick out constellations and different, and you can label.
Astrology? Wait.
Well,
all right, I gotta back it up. Constellation, so like that's your like alignment to other people. So you can choose like
Oh my gosh, like the map in the L word.
yeah.
Yes.
So you can pick like, do you want to be part of just a triad where there's three of you? Do you want to be part of, like a bigger thing? Do you want just friendships?
Yes.
A bunch of friendships. Or,
FWB partner, platonic. You can label. It lets you specifically, and it's been growing like over the last like 6 months of what you can label. And so mine's so complicated because I have very different relationships with a lot of friends, like
Yeah.
extreme different, like even dynamics. And I was like, okay, I need to list it because people are always like, who are you partnering with? And I'm like, well, define like partnership. And so with Anarchy, what I feel is important is sometimes like confusing to people who are not, in an anarchist mentality. So I'll be like, well, I do have a friends with benefit, but I don't like that label. But that's just we're friends that we can do things. I have what is called a satellite partner, which is a newer term for me, but we use it in the realm of we've been actively having sex for 2 years almost. But that is just the basis of a relationship. There's no romantic or emotions behind it. And then I have like platonic partner. We value our relationship, but we aren't doing anything other than like friendship basis and no sex. And then we just kind of decided to label a triad constellation with his partner. I have a sexual relationship with, it's a triangle. So like one connection is platonic, one is sexual, but then theirs is a different connection on the bottom of the triangle. And so they call that you can call it a constellation triad or a constellation throuple. And it's just basically saying, hey, I do have a relationship with this. Same for you.
A triad? Constellation?
Yeah. What? Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, no, it is.
Be a platonic.
That's the same, but that's the same thing because, and then the triangles can change, and it's just basically, I mean, it's so nice to be able to be like, why are you seeing this person 3 times a week or 4 times a week and you're not in a relationship? People are like, why are you consuming all your time? No, that's a relationship to me. And I'm doing this. And then if you have your own mini label that you get to define, that makes it so much easier. It's confusing and you're like, I don't really care. Sorry if you're confused. I'm happy where I am. So like
I think that's the whole point though, is like it matters, like you're the only person that matters in your life. And obviously like the communication with the other partners and having that clarity is very important.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's your life. You
Yeah.
get to do what you want with it. And it sounds really cool. Like this sounds like not anything I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
So.
I'm actually trying to bring more and more awareness to it because like even in like my Discord channel, people will be like, oh, well, what are your dynamics? And I'm like, well, look at this profile or look at that, or I support this, or I feel like everyone's starting to kind of like hone in on it. But to bring it back to the beginning, on my field profile, I put what I want, and then I put, okay, here's my current partnerships, which is a friend with benefit, a satellite, a comment, which is another type of partner, and then and then my constellation triad. And I'm like, okay, it kind of sounds like maybe I don't need any more relationships after I've listed a lot, but also it feels great to be able to list them and know that if someone does ask me, I have an explanation for it and kind of like a path for it. So.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the cool part of that too is like that even though you have all those relationships, it's not necessarily demanding more time of you because sometimes you can say, I don't want to talk to anybody today.
Exactly.
Go talk to your other partner over there. Go get busy with them over there. Yeah.
That is a nice thing, especially.
Well, and I do feel like even though you spoke about like not wanting to have labels, I feel like this is a really empowering way to have identity
Mhm.
of being able to like tangibly see like this is who I am, this is who I'm with, but
Yeah.
also I have like, autonomy in being able to change that if I ever want to
Yeah.
or take the time to myself. Like
Yeah.
it just feels like a really important part of self-actualization or
Yeah.
self-discovery, I guess.
Yeah, instead of like an escalator where, oh, I have to get married. Oh, I have to have kids. Oh, I have to do this. Oh, I have to do that. And it's like, I did all that and I never want to ever do it again. But also, I support people that do want to do that because
Yeah. Mhm.
maybe you want to, maybe that makes you feel happy, but we should have all the options on the table. It shouldn't just be
Mhm.
one path, you know?
Yeah. And again, on that line of like filling someone's needs, like you don't want that again, but maybe whoever you're with, it really likes you and loves you, but
Yeah.
doesn't, but does want those things. And so maybe they can achieve that with their other partners.
Yes, exactly,
And
which
then
is
you're still there to be support and love and
and
like
you don't
be
feel like
like,
you're holding
cool, you're having a great experience.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So rolling it back a little bit to polyamory and ethical non-monogamy, just to throw definitions in there for people. So relationship anarchy is much more focused on like we're doing kind of whatever the hell we want.
Let's
There's
go.
we're making our own rules.
Yeah.
So polyamory focuses a little more on like love specific connections. So it usually is more intent of like long-term partners.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily exclusive to that, but that's generally how people define it. And then ethical non-monogamy is a wider like umbrella term over
Mhm.
that is more encompassing of a lot of different types of relationships, but a
Mhm.
little more traditional, like a little bit more like the anarchy is more like let's just do whatever. Ethical non-monogamy is more like we're probably going to have some level of escalator. We're probably going to have
Mhm.
some level of what is that hierarchy, even if we don't mean to, because most people now are working on actively trying not to be hierarchical. So like not placing one partner as your primary partner in your first place or whatever it is,
Mhm.
your first priority. But people are trying to work on getting rid of some of that stigma,
Mhm.
but it usually still is going to be somewhat present
Yeah.
in that kind of dynamic.
Yeah. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, and a lot of times you can't avoid it.
You can't. You're gonna
And a lot
have
of
someone
people
you
would,
connect to closer.
yeah, and a lot of people would call like me and Lauren that because we're the longest term relationship. We live
Absolutely.
together. Like that kind of thing makes it a little bit more automatically primary,
Or
but you can
naturally.
still,
Yeah.
yeah. And I would call her like my nesting partner.
Mhm.
So that's my like long-term person that I live with.
Yeah.
But obviously someone else can't just come in and all of a sudden like be at that same level. So like there's some natural hierarchy that has to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's
It's a variation, and that's the nice that's a good part of it. Someone could come in, and neither of you are going to be threatened, whether which direction
Mhm.
someone comes in, whether it's on Lauren's side or yours or both of you. You're like, this is what it is, but also we're flexible and we can change the dynamic if we need to because we are
Yeah,
open.
exactly.
I think I was just gonna say too that like it just feels like it brings so much communication and
Mhm.
so much clarity to what everyone is, and then bringing it back to um like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
I
at the
think
end of the day.
the hardest thing probably is knowing what you want.
Yeah.
Maybe is that
And then it changes, and you're like,
yeah.
wait.
Yeah, because one of the things about it that really benefits, at least from most people's perspectives on it, is the direct communication. Because it's all about you can't skip around things. You can't
Mhm.
half truth things. Like you have to be very direct and honest with what's happening.
Mhm.
Um, and you have to be direct and honest about what you have going on internally too. You can't hide your internal world.
No, you
Like
can't.
you really,
If you want it to work,
yeah,
anyway.
if you want it to work and
Yeah.
be a fair partnership and all of that, you really have to be vulnerable and
Mhm.
um yeah, like you have to be able to assess like am I feeling jealousy and why and like what's going on there and like
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of
and talk about it.
communication. Yes. Which gets easier as the relationship continues.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, once you realize like the person's not a threat.
yeah.
Like you said, like you're
Yes.
not threatening the primary relationships that are happening. Like every
Yeah.
relationship is its own. So one relationship is not the threat to the other relationship. And
Mhm. But I mean, that even dials back to, I think, a conversation we had was the NRE.
mm,
So if you're in a polyamorous relationship and you are really set with one thing, and then you're like, but I also want to start dating this person, and you're in a whole different perspective with that. You're like going through all the beginning stuff. You've got the butterflies, you've got just so many different situations. I would sometimes, even though I'm not like an extreme dater, I would almost feel bad about maybe presenting that to that person I've been with longer if they're not experiencing it at the same time in the same or with us because sometimes things are not parallel, sometimes they're like meshed together. And
Yeah.
so I would kind of feel bad, and I think that's something like the statistics for that are like 1 to 3 months.
Mm.
I feel like
For new, yeah,
yeah.
Anarchy is new relationship energy.
Yeah.
It's like I've heard that, but what is it
Yeah.
again?
So it's like the excitement that you get, like she was saying, the butterflies, and
Yeah.
like just all in on like
Oh,
this
I
new
know.
person.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Which, yeah, it effectively increased by
Mhm.
limerence if you
Uh-huh.
experienced that as an
Yes.
ADHD person. And
Mm, yeah.
yeah. Mm.
So
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that if you experience NRE and if it really like if it gets in the way of other things for you or if
yeah.
yeah.
No. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
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 And that might be like because of the odd diagnosis and not just autism, but I
Mm.
will hyper focus on dopamine. If I'm
Hmm.
getting that or serotonin, whatever, if I'm getting that good, happy chemical, I am going to hyper focus.
You're getting
I'm like,
it.
this is for me, and and I'm getting too much of it, but I don't care. I'm gonna keep going.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I kind of have to, thank goodness I have a therapist, but I have to like dial myself back.
Mm.
And I do struggle with like permanent dating. Even as an anarchist, I still am not efficient with feelings and kind of like pushing them out or giving too much. Maybe it's a survival tactic, I don't know, but when I do feel things, I feel them big.
Mm.
And NRE, it's definitely there. And then when it goes away, I'll just get the ick.
Oh,
And that's not
switch to
fair.
the ick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because once the dopamine's gone, and even if someone's not doing anything wrong, my brain will kind of go into like, oh, you're not getting as much dopamine anymore. So maybe you just don't like this person or the situation, which is usually not true. But you,
Yeah.
you really have to rationalize with yourself.
Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about it a little bit on our love episode way back, but I definitely have like responsive desire. So like that initial NRE gives me all the like responsiveness that I need. And it's
Yeah.
just like, whoa, like I'm just ready to go all the time. And like super so exciting. And the same thing, it like wears off. And it's like, okay, well now where do I get that like thing to respond to? Where do I get the
Mm-hmm.
dopamine to respond to?
Yes,
And then
exactly where.
yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna tie it into a definition of love that I've like found from Bell Hooks,
Okay.
which is love is the will to like grow your own or another spiritual growth or
Okay.
like the definition is like choosing to love that person and like it's an act. It's not just a passive thing. It's not
Mhm.
just the butterfly feeling. So maybe that's what we're talking about is going from like, that buzziness of getting to know someone to like actively choosing to love them.
Mhm.
No, that makes sense,
Would that make
honestly.
sense?
No, it,
Okay.
it, it does. And I don't know if I want to share specifics, but I am trying to get more aware of my relationships. And like even with Brie, we started this kind of like pebbling thing where we'll buy gifts and like that's kind of one of my love languages, acts of service or like
Yeah.
gifts. I'm not very good at showing it other ways. So I'll be like, oh, I know what to get you for your birthday. I know what to do this, and this. And
You.
yeah, and I love that. And that's me choosing
Yes.
to continue a
Yes.
relationship. And prior to that, you just think these are situations that are just going to exist naturally and you don't have to think about it. And it is not true.
No.
You have to maintenance it. And that is a big step. And you have to make that choice within yourself. And if you can't, then yeah, it will probably mess up the relationship, especially if the person you're with isn't like, hey, is this something we should work on? Da da da. You have to want to do it at the end of the day, though.
You
Yeah.
do. And there's autonomy in both people to want to
Yeah.
do it. And
Yeah.
and this applies to all sorts of love. It's not just romantic. It's
Mm.
platonic love, it's self-love, like choosing yourself,
Mhm.
choosing to love your community. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just romantic love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I found a couple of Reddits.
Okay.
I want to read this one through and then we can talk about part of what's in it too.
Okay.
So it says, I practice non-monogamy, specifically relationship anarchy, and I do see ways that it connects to being autistic for me personally. Cis-het monogamy culture feels like a whole pile of prescriptive social scripts that I have no interest in adhering to. I would much rather co-create relationships with people that are exactly what we want them to be and have capacity for, no more and no less. I also feel really strongly about autonomy and agency, and I don't wish to tell any partners how they can and cannot relate to or engage with others, and I expect the same.
Mhm.
Radical honesty, direct communication, and boundaries are my jam, rather than
Yes.
rules or expectations, especially unspoken ones. Honestly, I struggled with cheating when I was younger and trying to do monogamy. I experienced a lot of attraction to a lot of people and was always drinking a ton as a teen and in my early 20s to try and manage my social anxiety.
Mhm.
And then I made harmful drunk decisions that hurt people I cared about. Learning that ethical non-monogamy, which cheating is not, was a possibility, was a game changer for me, and it's enabled me to create much more authentic relationships where I'm able to show up more fully as myself and more ethically in how I engage with my partners.
Oh, yeah,
Beautiful.
that is amazing.
Yeah, super well written.
Super relatable. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Planty thing from Reddit. Yeah, I wanted to talk about part of that because I struggled a little bit with cheating when I was younger.
Mhm.
Not necessarily just because of the attraction end of things, but when I felt controlled. When I felt overly, the only two times that I cheated on somebody was when I felt overly controlled and was basically told, like, you're not allowed to talk to friends, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to flirt with people. And I got in trouble all the time because people think I'm flirting nonstop.
Aries Venus.
I'm not, I'm just very friendly, and this is how I learned to talk to people. Um, so yeah, so I definitely struggled with that. I don't know if you guys want to share anything on that, but definitely control is an issue for me in monogamy, especially.
Mhm.
I don't have anything to share. I've never been cheated on or have cheated, so I haven't had that experience. Luckily, I
Oh.
think it would fuck me up.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is kind of how my marriage had to end up eventually opening because
Okay.
of just realizing that there's feelings for other people and the control aspect. I mean, yeah, being told no, no, thank you. Like the
Mhm.
justice system is going in strong there, especially with the autism unknowingly. I did not like to have to think about my interactions with people. And in a
Mm.
monogamous marriage, we're constantly, I actually was more insecure and worried. And I didn't realize it wasn't about them actually being with those people. It was just a preset thought in my head where I thought, oh no, I'm supposed to be worried because it's a survival tactic. If I can't worry about them and if they're not doing what they're going to do, our marriage is going
Mm.
to fail. But yes, when we've officially started opening, the less control, the better I felt, the happier I think we
More
both were.
secure
Yes,
and
the more secure because it's almost reassuring in an indirect way. But when you try to control somebody, you would get so much anxiety on both sides.
yeah.
And no one wants to be told no, like this is my body, this is my choice. Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Mm.
yeah, it was a thing for sure.
Yeah. Do you experience much jealousy?
I've had people not want to be with me because I don't have any.
Oh yeah.
My compersion's way too high. I sometimes need to dial it back. I am happier when I see other people liking others. I don't know what it is. We've really tried to hone in on my therapy. I would rather see two people happier than me happy with that person.
Mm.
And that was a big part of me knowing I wanted to be in relationship anarchy
Yeah.
because I get so much joy of hinging people together and just being like, oh, you two would be so good together. And then it works out, and I'm like, oh, I get so much dopamine from this. Yeah.
Brooke is our party coordinator. It's the bringer together of
Party
people.
Yeah. Like, did you think you weren't going to be friends? Actually, let me present you with a situation where I know both of you separately, and I can put you in a place where you're going to actually connect. And then I get so excited about it.
Yeah.
So zero jealousy. In fact, I feel like sometimes people look at it as like a bad thing, and I've
Mhm.
started to, I had to go through it. I had to accept that no, it doesn't mean I don't care enough about you because I'm not jealous that you're with so and so or doing this or that. That was a big struggle. I'm still kind of working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My emotions are not as strong as others, and I do care and I have issues showing it, but I'm working on it, and I've now realized doing little things like with the Discord or just with friends in general, I can find ways where I feel really validated without jealousy. So yeah,
Yeah.
no jealousy, should be more maybe, but yeah.
Oh.
Who knows, right? Who knows what the stipulation or the real
Yeah.
level is supposed to be at?
Well, and then I think if you're not matching with that person, that just shows an incompatibility. It doesn't mean that you need to change, like automatically feeling jealous, I guess is what I kind
Yeah.
of feedback I want to give. It's
Yeah.
like it just means that you're not a good match for whatever you're in, whether it is like the more romantic, the more platonic, or Sorry, those are like the binaries I have.
That makes
But I
it
know
less
you mentioned
confusing.
like several other types of relationships. So I guess it brings back like that communication aspect. And
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't expect to like talk about control within relationships too, but I really see how that can just be a breeding ground for so many problems.
So much
So
tension.
much
And
tension.
assumptions too that come with that.
Assumptions, yeah.
Mhm.
And there can be a lot of mismatch
Exactly.
between relationship assumptions there too, because like some people control might be, just or I guess not control, but the like automatic assumption of the definition of their relationship may be like that you don't have friends with the same sex, or like that maybe don't go out with your friends more than you hang out with me, or things like that. So some people may have this like high spot where they expect things to be at, and then other people are more relaxed, especially people that are more likely to be non-monogamous, where they're like, I want you to have friends. Like, go hang out with your friends. Go.
Yeah.
Are you cuddling with your friend? Cute.
Good.
Okay. Just, tell me if something's gonna change.
Yeah.
So there's those different levels, and so like when that mismatch is there, especially like for me when I was younger, it was because I felt very relaxed of like you could be with your friends, like I don't mind, I'm not jealous about those situations, kind of thing. And the person that I was with had the opposite expectation.
Yes.
That our relationship is the first thing that comes first, and you don't hang out with friends that much, and like yeah, that was the like control that I experienced, which could also just be a mismatch in
I get that
desire and expectations.
So interesting.
Or just how you were raised, a lot of it, I
Yeah.
feel like how we were raised, we were in the Bible Belt,
Yeah.
religious, love that. Not anything against it. Everyone can choose their path. So, but that kind of puts in your relationship dynamic, even starting out. And we were married. I was married early. You gotta have kids, you have to have the mom friends, and then this is what you can and can't do. So
Yeah, my therapist is really pushing on that with me in terms of like really working through being a part of a Christian community for so long and like really seeing like very strict expectations and rules with relationship, and that the world is so much more open than that. And like I know it's open. I think that like it's just really because I know we talked last time about how I'm like pretty freaking positive I'm monogamous. And like I haven't been like challenged in any way either. So it's like I'm not closed off to the idea, but I'm pretty sure it's what I want. But like it is really interesting to bring it into perspective of like, is this just something that's been like shown to me? Like my parents have been together for 35 years. So like that's my model of life.
absolutely.
And
yeah.
so it's a really interesting concept. I love talking about it.
Yeah. I think when I first learned about like the relationship escalator, it kind of like blew my mind because all I had was that structure of like that's what happens. You get in a relationship, you date for this amount of time, you get married, you go have kids, like blah 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 blah. It's like when I first like learned that you could do something that's not that, like I still struggle now to like not let that happen in every relationship. Like it's been a great relationship with because we have a very hard line of like this is not, this is where we're at, this is the things that we do want, and we're not like intending to go beyond that. And it's a good practice for me because there's a small part of my brain that's like, but now you need to do this and this next. I'm like, no shit, that's not what I want right now.
Well, we talked about the concept of that relationships are a lot easier for you two, and then like friendships are really easy for me. So like thinking about that comparison too of like
I'd be interested to know your response to that. Do you feel like
relationships, friendships are so much easier for me?
Yeah.
Like so much. Relationships.
I agree.
Yeah, relationships. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I can even say I'm like in real relationships, like how everyone else will like people will partner up and be like, we're doing this and this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, I don't do that yet. Okay. Yeah, no, friendship's so easy. And then you put the pressure of like, oh, I have to like do like love and romantic. It is so hard. And I'm that is also a big thing I'm working on. I don't know if I'll succeed ever. And it's surprising because I'm like, well, how did I do this marriage? Oh, well, you're legally married. You don't have a choice. Like you're in here and you have to do it. You know.
Yeah,
but now
until you make it.
Yeah, but now that that I'm open and like just doing different things, I realize that I don't have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Well, maybe that's something you're exploring about whether that's what you want or whether that's just something that's happening. Like, are you choosing that because that is really what you want, that you don't want long-term relationships like that? Like,
I don't like so much one-on-one.
Yeah.
In fact, for me, if I could just pick like 3 or 4 people to be in a relationship with, because sometimes I'll just be like doing great things and I love everybody and I'm really interested in being in a relationship with them. But sometimes I just want to like dip out and be like, but you have each other, so I don't have to feel bad. Also, sometimes at the end of the day, after like a overstimulating day or a date or just spending time with my significant other, I just like to jump down here and be by myself. I'm so happy in my bed alone and I'm just like, this is so great. But like you're going to feel different things in different phases of a relationship. And it's hard for me to think about one person depending on that, even if it's non-monogamous, because depending on their relationship with the other partner,
Yeah.
I will always worry, am I giving them enough? Or am I receiving enough? And if there's another factor, then I can kind of be like, oh, it's not just my job. You know, I can kind of like derail that and give it to somebody else too. So
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of freedom.
yes, freedom's great though.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Freedom is one of my values.
Yeah.
But like it just does take so much pressure off of all of those expectations and then figuring out like the freedom to figure out what you want and what you need.
Yeah.
So it's
And
really cool.
we've talked before about how a lot of neurodiverse people struggle with either hypersexuality or under being a asexual, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very common actually.
Yeah, as like I don't know, it's a good way to explore those other relationships too, and also make sure that your partner is getting needs met.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times you may be the one that doesn't want sex or even for short term, like sometimes I'll go through phases where I'm like, I don't want to be touched for like a month.
Yeah.
And like the next month I'm like, just be all over me all the time.
Or with different partners, you feel different things that you want, and you don't understand why, but you want to regulate between them. So it's kind of like, you can mix and match. It's nice in that fact.
Mix and match.
Mix and match.
Well, I think that's all the like question stuff that I had. Any final words of advice or anything about being a parent or with relationships?
I mean, it's wild out there, and obviously this is probably the most confusing podcast ever. It's ever changing, ever growing, and I don't feel like there should be any shame. I'm still learning, even 2 years into it. So
yeah,
I'm here. This is supportive, and I think that over time, all of this is going to get even better and better.
Yeah,
hopefully, it's a goal.
Thank you for sharing. That was awesome.
Yeah, we love having you.
Come back.
I mean, it is a convenient location.
All right, Hotties, thank you so much for joining us this week. Be unapologetically you.
Find your joy.
Make your own choices, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely make all your own choices.
Be free.
Be free.
Be free and be weird.
Be weird.
Be unapologetically you.
Always.
Thanks so much, Brooke.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music.
Please like, subscribe, and leave us a review. We could use some of those. If you want to get pictures that go along with our episodes and follow along, join us on Instagram and TikTok.
Thanks, Hotties. Bloopity bloop bloop.
Bloopers! We are on the record.
Oh.
How does it feel?
Oh, this is so exciting.
In what way? Oh, if you don't want to. Oh, wow.
Oh.
We gotta get 2 people together.
About halfway through every time I get paranoid that we're not recording. Double check.
So
almost every time. Big drink break.
Yeah, can we have a drink?
Yeah, go for it.
Just edit this out.
Yep, exactly.
Make
I literally do whatever I want.
Okay, he's like edit,
edit.
because my phone's also been triple vibrating.
Oh gosh.